going to talk about the Trilogy 100 now. That is another ventilator that we have as a demonstration. This ventilator is a newer ventilator that is out and is being seen more and more common because it is a very, very nice ventilator. Very, very portable and also very easy, user-friendly and everything, especially with kids and everything too. So first of all, I want to remind everybody that when you turn on a ventilator, especially when it's off like this, when you first turn on a ventilator, make sure it is attached to your test lung. And the reason why I say that is because you never know if settings have gotten changed or things have gotten bumped or something's not going to be right with the ventilator. So you always start off by turning it on with the test lung, and then you put on your client once you are sure that the settings are okay and everything is working properly. All right, so we're going to start by looking at our way around the Trilogy ventilator. Okay, so first of all, A on your papers is going to be your start-stop button. That is going to be this little button right here, okay? So use the start and also the stop. The B is going to be your up and down button, your navigation. So when you turn this on, if you want to go up, if you want to toggle down, this is how you do that. C is going to be your AC power LED. That is this little light down here. The little light down here is lit up when it is plugged into the wall. You want to make sure it's always plugged into the wall. It's one of those things that you kind of get used to seeing the way the ventilator is and what's going on with it that you forget to sometimes pay attention if there's that light is on. That way you know it's not using the battery source up. D is going to be your red alarm, LED, and audio pause button, which is this button up here. Okay, it's a dual purpose. You can pause your button here for your alarms. It also lights up around here. And when we actually turn it on, I'll show you some differences in the alarms. This technology is very, very smart on this particular ventilator. It determines whether your alarms are low priority, high priority, or moderate priority by looking different and sounding different. And we'll go over that a little bit further down the line. When you hit this silence, it'll silence it for up to 60 seconds or 1 minute again, and then it'll go ahead and be activated once again. F is going to be your left and right buttons, which is this one's on here. And if you want to do something, if it says select on this side, you press this. If you want to exit and it says it on this side, you press this one. So whatever you want to do is which button you press here. Like if you want to select it, if you want to exit it, if you want to finish it, if you want to change something. You just follow along what the screen says. G is going to be your backlight LED and display screen. That is this little screen right here. It's just showing that this is where things are located. On the side of your ventilator, first thing you're going to have is the outlet port to the client, okay, which is going to be this piece right here, okay. Sometimes has a filter, sometimes not, which is right here. This is where your circuit hooks up. You have your AC power inlet. In other words, that's where the power from the wall is in, on the side here. And you also on the back, if I turn this around the other way, you'll be able to see that you have where a active or passive universal porting block can be located. This just depends on what type of circuit you have in line with the ventilator. It'll either look like this where it's nice and smooth, or it'll look like this when you have this piece in place of the other one and it has a couple of ports out the back to put your sense lines on. You will not have to ever do the changing of this. It'll be the DME company will have it already there for you in place, but I want to make sure you're aware that sometimes it'll look like this, sometimes it'll look like this. D is going to be your detachable battery pack, and we'll go over batteries in a little bit later. Okay. Then on this side of the ventilator, you have what they call an SD card. Okay, it looks just like a camera card, just like for your pictures and stuff like that. It's a 1 or 2 gigabyte of memory, and it records 72 hours of raw data, so breath by breath. It compacts that into daily details for the past 30 days, and then it compacts that into trends overviews of the last 12 months. So it basically has a year's worth of ventilation data in it. Just make sure that's in there and it stays in there unless the physician, you're going to the doctor's office and the client is not vent dependent, so they want you to pull the data card. Or the DME company might come out and pull the data card to do some downloads and stuff with it. Don't worry if it's not in place because it's just not going to record the data. It still works the same regardless if it is in place or not. On the actual back of the ventilator, again, A is going to be your detachable battery right here. B is going to be your power cord retainer, which is a fancy word for something that's going to hold my power cord in place. So if I come by and trip over it, if I yank on it, it's not going to pull the power out right away. C and E are your serial connector and your Ethernet connector right here and here. These are two buttons that the DME company will use for different things, but we in home care usually typically don't use those. F is going to be your external battery connector, which is right here, okay, and that's where you'll hook on to go to your external battery or your like marine battery or your car battery type thing. And then you're going to have your D, which is remote alarm connector and audio sound, which is located right here. This is where you don't want to have something blocking over it like a cotton ball or something taped on the back that you can't hear the alarm really well. This is also where you can have a port that plugs into here and about up to 300 feet worth of cord and a little box that has a remote alarm that you might be asked by the family not to be in the room, or they want you down the hall or something like that. Well, this way you know when the alarms are going off because you have this remote alarm with up to 300 feet of cord attached to it. The next thing on the back is your oxygen flow, your oxygen valve port, which will take flows up to 15 liters per minute. This is what I consider the weakest part of this ventilator because of the fact that the piece that goes into it is made of plastic, a little white plastic piece here. And it does shove in there pretty hard. So you want to make sure when you're putting it in, you put it in that it clicks. So if you're listening for it, you'll hear that click. But notice my fingers have an indentation now on it from where I pushed it in because it is a hard push. To release it, you press down on the metal piece and pull out. As such. Again, indentations in my finger. So what I tell people, I advise you to do is to put your oxygen tubing on it already, like this. It gives a little bit more backing to go ahead and push it in and then pull it out, okay? When you're traveling with it, if you don't have oxygen hooked up to it, go ahead and take this port out and then otherwise you can snap it off. But make sure you have at least 3 or 4 of these in the home at all times because of the fact that you might snap it off. The other thing that I like to have available in the home is this little piece here. This little piece will go in the side of the ventilator here in case you have your port that breaks off. You can go ahead and open this up, put this in here, and then you can put your oxygen tubing right here. That way the client can still get the oxygen if you don't have any more of the little white pieces. Maybe they've all broken off. Okay. The other thing that's in the back, you have one more thing that I want to point out, and that is your gray foam filter here. Just like your other ventilators that you probably used, this needs to be washed out. Check it every shift. If it's dusty, dirty, wash it out with water, no soap in it. Let it air dry. Take your extra one out of the drawer and put it in place of here. So then you always have a dry one that goes in. Okay. So if I go to turn this ventilator on, what I'm going to see when I turn it on is this screen. So I'll go ahead and turn it on. It does a little alarm, it does a little self-check before it starts running on its own. Okay, so then it starts running. This is the screen that's going to come up as soon as that display, when you turn it on. Okay, first of all, there's a detailed view and a non-detailed view. You should always have the detailed view on, the feature on, making sure that you can see what's going on with the client with all these little features and stuff. Otherwise, the non-detailed view will have all this gone and it'll just have the date and time on here. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to pick apart this section, the middle section, and the bottom section. Okay, we're going to pick each one of them apart and tell you what each of these features does. So first of all, you have A, your date and time here. It's always going to have your current date and what time it is written in here, so you can at a glance know what it is. B is going to be your prescription. That is this little piece over here. Now I have only one prescription in there. If I had more than one, because this machine has the technology to have 2 prescriptions, you have a primary and you can have a secondary. Your primary can be your main one that maybe you use all the time, and your secondary one might be one that you use at night only, or you use during weaning, or you're just using like CPAP trials or something like that. So you can have a primary and a secondary. If I had 2 in here, it would say primary, or if I was running on my secondary, it would say secondary there. But it says nothing, so therefore it means I have 1 prescription in there. The therapy mode is going to be right next to it here, and there's several different therapy modes that are in here. Right now I have it on assist control, so it says AC, and it has the word PSI back behind there. The only reason why it has the word PSI on there is because I have the PSI feature turned on. If it was not ordered and I did not have it turned on, it would just say my mode, which would be assist control, SIMV, CPAP, or whatever it might be with this particular ventilator or client. D is going to be my patient breath. So if a patient actually does the triggering of the breath, you're going to go ahead and you're going to see this little dot come on here. That means that the client actually triggered that breath. Now, it's nothing that if you are not looking at it, you're not going to see whether that client triggered that breath or not. But it's one of those, if you see out of the corner of your eye, you see something flash, you might think, okay, what was that? Well, it was probably a client breath. So just make sure you take a good look at the ventilator then, and you will see that. E is going to be your airway pressure manometer, and that just displays breath by breath what's going on and what pressure is going on in with that breath. So it starts out with your PEEP, and this PEEP looks like it's set at about maybe 4, and then it goes all the way up until it delivers the breath, and then it comes back down, and it leaves a line where that peak inspiratory pressure was at the previous breath. And the next breath comes in, line disappears, leaves it where that one is at. Your F is going to be that peak pressure line right here. And then you have your G, your low pressure alarm, which this one happens to be set on 10, and your H is your high pressure alarm, which is happens to be set on 50 on this one. These are the only 2 parameters that you will see on the front of the screen that are physician driven. The rest of these are all client data, and no actual prescribed parameters are on the front, just your low pressure and your high pressure alarms. I is going to be your current patient pressure. In other words, from where it starts, it starts at 3.9, so you must have a PEEP of 4 sitting in there. And it goes all the way up till it delivers the breath, comes all the way back down. It's showing every little piece as it's happening, the pressure that's going in, the pressure that's going back out, and where it sits at. J is going to be your respiratory rate here, and that's going to be your total respiratory rate. So that'll be your client and the ventilator total. Now, as we talked before, we never ever take this reading off of here. We always time them with our watches because there's a lot of factors that go into here. Auto cycling, it's an average over the last minute. It's not actual real time as the breaths are happening. So this says 10 here right now, and if I had some client breaths on my own here, it's up to 13, but what if that's auto cycling? Now it says 16. Well, I didn't press it that many times and it caused 16 breaths. It's an average. That's why we time our clients. Now it's up to 20, say I did 20 breaths per minute. K is going to be your exhaled tidal volume, your tidal volume exhaled. So say I had 400 going in, okay? I have 406 coming out on this one. Next breath, I have maybe 414. It kind of depends, 394. But this is my exhaled tidal volume, not what is being sent to the client. And then L is going to be my displayed leak. This here is going to be my total leak. Now, this is kind of confusing to some people. Respironics, if you've dealt with Respironics brand stuff, has the technology in it that it allows for leaks in the circuit that it can compensate for. For example, because I have a passive circuit on here, I have constant flow coming out of this around here, my exhalation valve, okay? Constant flow. So to ensure that I have 5 or 400 coming into my client, I maybe deliver 420. So I deliver that 420, it comes up here, I lose 20 right here, so then the 400 is now going to my client. Now if I had like a leak in the system, for example, I can go ahead and take this out, and most ventilators would start alarming saying, I have a leak, it's too low. This ventilator has the technology in it that it will compensate for that small of a leak. It will give maybe 450 worth of tidal volume coming out. So I might go 450, I lose my 20 here, I probably lose 30 here, and then I still get my 500 to my client. So if you have small leaks and this machine can compensate for them, it will compensate for it. If it can't, that's when your alarms are going to go off. So I'll plug that back up again. So that's what it means when it says leak. That's the leak amount that it has to put in there in order for it still to deliver the tidal volume that is set at. All right, let's go to the next section here, which is called my measured settings panel. First of all, you're going to have your peak inspiratory pressure. Okay, and we've already talked about all these terms, so we know what these are. My peak inspiratory pressure is going to be here. B is going to be my IE ratio, so my 1 to 5.6 in this particular case. The next one's going to be my peak flow, which is the maximum inspiratory flow delivered to the client during the previous breath. Okay, so it's always a breath behind. I had 37.2 in that one. My mean airway pressure is down here. That's just my average of my airway pressure. And then over here, I'm going to have my minute ventilation, which right now is at 3.8. The next section is going to be my status panel, which is this down here, okay? And on yours, you're going to have every single possible light that is lit up that can possibly be lit up in this one. Mine, I don't have that because the ventilator is running. So if you refer to your slide in your packet, first of all, you're going to have your full menu access. This is kind of confusing to people also because this has nothing to do with locking out your keypad. Clients, if this is unlocked here, that doesn't mean that clients can get in here and make changes. What it means is you have full access to make changes of whatever is prescribed by the physician. The next one over is going to be your card. That just means that my card is in place, my SD card is in place and recording my data. If it had an X over the top of it, that just means there's something wrong or it's not in there, something's not working right, but it still runs the ventilator just fine. It's just not recording the data. Make sure you get a hold of the DME company for that. These next three are going to be your batteries. Now, I don't have it attached to the external battery, so you have your external battery, your detachable battery, and your internal battery. First of all, if it is not plugged into the wall and it's plugged to your external battery will be sitting right here. As I use some of my external battery, there's these little itty bitty lines in here, the bars will start going away. And it'll get down to like 1 bar. The square around that battery means that I'm using that battery. If I was using the detachable battery, then it would go around the detachable battery. For example, if I take the power out of here, first of all, it's going to let me know I did that. Second of all, you're going to notice a box now is around my detachable battery. That just means, okay, I'm running off of this battery right now. As I'm using it, all little bars are going to go away until it gets down to the bottom bar. Then this little inside, when it gets down to 20 minutes worth of battery life, will turn yellow. Then it gets down to 10 minutes worth of battery life, it'll turn to red and say, yoo-hoo, you know what, I'm going to change it to my next battery source, which is going to be my internal battery. Okay, so it starts usually with detachable, then the next thing external, the next thing it'll do is go to detachable, and then it'll go to internal. If I don't have an external hooked to it, first thing it does is go to detachable. It saves the internal battery for the very, very end. I'm going to go ahead and hook that back in there and see it goes away. The next one over there that is going to be your lightning bolt. If there is a lightning bolt over top of any of these batteries, that just means I've used some of my battery and I'm recharging. So you will only see that if I've used enough battery that I have to recharge back up. The next one over is if I hit my pause right here, you can see that a bell comes up with an X across it. That means my alarms are paused at this point. Okay, so they'll stay that way for 60 seconds. The next one, if you have a ramp breath in certain types of modes that we have in here, you might have a different type of breath. You might see a little ramp here, and that's just a type of breath. You don't have to worry about it or do anything with it. It's just the type of breath that will happen. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the main screen now. If I want to get into the main screen, right now this is not locked, so anybody can get into it they want. I don't recommend that ever. I always recommend that you have it locked, no matter if you have little ones in the home, it doesn't matter, you might bump something. So right now it is unlocked. So if I can go ahead and go in, I press the up toggle. Then this screen comes up. The three things I'm going to want to know in this screen are going to be my settings and alarms, my options, if I go down one, my information. So settings and options, settings and alarms, options, and information are the three things that I will deal with mainly. Not that none of the other ones aren't important, but you should always, you can look through them and everything, but those are the three I will deal with. When I am doing my vent check, I will go into information. So I'm going to go down, toggle down until it says highlights information. I'm going to select it because I want to go in there. And then that's where it's going to come up and you're going to see your settings and alarms. Your dual prescription is off. Your circuit type is passive. Your mode is assist control. Your tidal volume is 400. I toggle down. This is the only parameter place that it'll go down page by page. Breath rate is 10. Inspiratory time 0.9. flow pattern ramp. PEEP is 4, flow trigger is what it's on. My sensitivity is 2, my psi is turned on. I have my low inspiratory pressure, my high pressure. And then down here on page 4, I have my low minute ventilation. Now this goes all the way to page 10. So usually the first 4 or 5 pages is what you're gonna need to do your actual vent check off of. It keeps going, it goes to volume, date, select, format, serial numbers, blower hours, it goes through all of that. But like I said, the first 4 pages, 4 to 5 pages are where you're gonna wanna do your vent check off of. That way you can't make any changes accidentally. That's why you wanna go into your information to do that. Say I'm done now doing my vent check. Everything's okay, it matches my 485, because we always remember that our 485 is what we go by. If this doesn't match, we gotta figure out where the discrepancy is. So I hit the finish, because I'm gonna finish out of here. And now I'm gonna go up to settings and alarms because I got a new order from a physician to change something. So I toggle up here until I highlight settings and alarms. So then I wanna select it. So first of all, I'm gonna go down to my mode, because I want to show you all the different modes that are in this ventilator that are available. So I go down to my mode and I want to modify it. Now right now it's an assist control. As I toggle through the different modes, notice how these parameters change according to what mode I'm in. So every time I go down here, it's going to change to whatever parameters are for that particular mode, which is a really nice feature because you might get some order and think, well, do I set this or don't I set this? Well, if it's on here, then you need it to be set. Okay, so now I have it on assist control, that's where I want to keep it, so I'm going to press OK. Now say I need to change my PEEP. So I go down until it says PEEP. It says PEEP right here, and it's on 4, but say the physician wanted to go to 3. So I hit modify, okay, and I'm going down, I'm like, oh, it won't let me. It's on 4, but it says limit is reached. Because it is a passive circuit on here, and because I have this air constantly going through here, I have to have a PEEP of 4 coming through here at all times to flush out that CO2. Well, I wouldn't know that, and how would anybody know that unless you've dealt with this machine quite a bit? So it is a safety check on here. It's like, oh, no, you know what? I can't do that. So then you would just call the physician and say, you know what? I can't set a PEEP of 3 on this. It has to be at least a PEEP of 4. Now, if I did want to change the PEEP though, I would just highlight it. I go to modify and say I want to change it to 6. I would just toggle it until it said until the number 6, and then I would press OK, and now I have a PEEP of 6 in there. That is the same for every one of your parameters. For example, if I want to change the tidal volume, needed to be changed to 350 according to an order, I would highlight tidal volume, modify, go, and it goes in increments of 5 until it had 350, and I would press OK. That's how I change all the parameters in here. Now, until I actually hit finish, the parameters don't take effect. So I hit finish, and it says, are you sure you want to activate this mode? Yes, I am. So I hit the yes, and now my parameters have taken place. The other one on here I told you about you want to know about is the options. If I toggle down and highlight options and press select, and I go down to keypad lock, this is where I lock my screen so my clients can't get into it, the children can't get into it, or I can't accidentally bump something. Right now it's on off, so I'm going to modify that, and I'm going to turn it on. So I press OK. Now I'm going to finish, and I'm going to exit out. Now if I try to get into this screen, oh, it's not going to let me. But it is telling me to hold the right key for 5 seconds to unlock. So you press and hold this right key for 5 seconds, which is actually more like 8 seconds. It beeps, it's unlocked. Now you can go ahead and get into it and make the changes. So a lot of the clients either don't know how to read and can't do that, or little kids, or sometimes there is a harder lock that if they end up getting into it and figuring it out, we can put a step further of a lock in there. And if that's the case, contact the DME company and make sure you know how to get in there in case you need to make those changes. That is all there is with the Trilogy. It's a very, very simple vent, very easy to use, and if you have any questions, let me know.